This is a brief tutorial on how to set up the axes and the grid on a GeoGebra graph. I've started up GeoGebra. I'm using a Macintosh, but it should work basically the same on a Windows computer. So I started it up. This is how we begin. I'll graph something simple. So maybe I want to not have a grid and I want to label the axes X and Y, maybe change the axis horizontally to have units of pi over 2. So all those things about setting up the graphing can either be done by right-clicking and choosing, okay, deselecting the object. So right-clicking brings up menus like this. If I click on the function, I can see object properties at the bottom. If I click just sort of out here, I get graphics. See how both of those have that gear thing? There's also the gear right here that I can just click on and choose from there. So objects do things like format the color of the function and the thickness of the line, and whether it's labeled or not. Here, really quickly. I've only got the one object that's selected. If I show a label and tell it to give it the value, I want name and value because I want F and sign of X there. Then when I close this, there it's nicely labeled. Color coded, looks pretty. Same idea if I do graphics, I can set up the grid. So the question I actually made this video for is how do I set the axis labels? X-axis asks you for a label you want, tell it X. And if I tab out of that, it will actually show the X over here. See? Y-axis, same thing, I'll put a Y. And again, when I tab out of that, I'll see the Y. I can also turn the grid on and off. I can make the grid just disappear entirely, or I can decide to not show the minor grid lines, the little tiny ones, if that's better. Whatever seems like a good idea there. I can also say whether I want the horizontal and vertical to have the same scale, and as a default, that's a good idea probably, but it's something you can change by zooming in and out in different directions. Back on the x-axis, for this particular trig function, it's a fairly common thing to count by multiples of pi or pi over 2. So if I check the distance, you can see that pi and pi over 2 are both choices, although you can type anything you want to in there. And let's suppose I like that, so I'll just close this out. And that's the graph I wanted. I can move things around or zoom in and out by scrolling up and down with the couple fingers on the trackpad is how I do that here. Or you can choose things like zoom in and zoom out like that. So I hope that that will help you just a bit.